Before we begin, thank you very much to Rainy Day Man 2K for joining the Patreon campaign. How timely. It has been raining profusely here. Great living in South Florida. Great living in South Florida. But thank you very much for the contribution. Even if it's a buck or two a month, it helps keep the channel going, helps keep the daily content coming, and I cannot do it without you, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Today we are discussing something that came up in discussions, and I've seen it over on Twitter quite a bit, so we're going to talk about it a little bit here. And the question is, why do we still love the 1986 Transformers movie? It was weird. So I saw Rodimus Primal post this on Twitter and ask people this exact question. Literally, while he posts it, this will tell you, and literally while he posts it, someone is here at the shop asking me, and telling me about like Transformers 1 and telling me how the 86 movie is so much better. Okay, so number one, that's super weird. That's super weird timing. Number two, don't judge a movie that you haven't, don't tell me that the 86 movie is better than a movie you haven't seen yet. That's pretty presumptuous. But also, three, this will tell you that this wasn't plan A for the day, and I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants today, because plan A is going to take a little bit more research. So, yeah, we're just going to talk about the topics of we're going to talk about something that's been going around. So why has it been going around? What brought this topic up again? Well, it happened to be an interview with some of the people behind Transformers 1, including Lorenzo di Bonaventura. Never fails to be a source of unintentional comedy. So, in this discussion, he said, what's so surprising about the 86 film is how dark it is. Honestly, I don't understand why people love it so much. So, here's the man who is in charge of the entirety of the Transformers movie franchise, and he doesn't understand why the original one works for fans. He doesn't understand why we love the original movie. He does admit that it might be because it's the first cinematic experience, and I'm sure for a lot of kids it was, but for most, I would say it wasn't. And this is also excluding the fact that a lot of those kids were traumatized. So what is it? Why is it? So why do we hold on to that movie so dearly? I mean, yeah, because it's the oldest movie and, we have so much nostalgia built up for it. But when we look at the movie itself, let's be honest here. It isn't the most original movie, is it? It is very much a hero journey story. It's a chosen one trope over the course of 90 minutes. And it is a movie that is designed specifically to eliminate last year's toy product line and bring in the new product line. And it is very cold and callous in the way that it goes about that, in a very corporate mandate way. So, yeah, story-wise, no, it's nothing spectacular. Now, that doesn't mean you're wrong for enjoying the story. I enjoy the story. But as someone who took a complete newbie into this movie, for its theatrical run during one of the anniversaries. My friend was completely lost during this entire film. She went to see it with me because it was it was a mutual friend's birthday. She knew I wanted to see it. She was curious. Tried to show it to her once before on the TV. She fell asleep. So it's not something that's going to thrill everybody. The uninitiated? No, it's not for the uninitiated. So we'll examine this a little bit. So for me, when it comes to the story itself, I don't think the overall story to it is really that special. I think what makes it special is what it does for the Transformers universe in general. In Season 2, we just started touching on the idea that there's more to the universe than Earth and Cybertron. We started finding other planets. They started having encounters with aliens, and it expands the Transformers lore dramatically. And then the 86 movie expands it even further. So when you have something like, the Autobots on Junkion, on Junk, and discovering the Junkions, you realize there's more Transformers out there in the universe than you would have expected. That there are more Transformers out there than just Autobots and Decepticons. Because even when we found alien Transformers in Season 2, like Devcon, he was still an Autobot. Junkions, no. Junkions are their entirely own thing, and that was something completely new. That opens up the universe. You see the exact same thing when you see the Sharkticons with the in the Quintesson Judgment Pool. We see more of the universe, and there's more Transformers out there. And it opens up possibilities. Even the Quintessons themselves, just kind of showing that there's more dangers in the universe than just Decepticons. Because even when we went to alien worlds in Season 2, the Decepticons were still the main threat there. This, again, opens the possibilities, opens up the universe. There's more in the galaxy than just Autobots and Decepticons, and that's the cool thing about the story. Though, as far as, like, while we're talking about writing, yes, there's a lot of memorable quote in this movie as well. I know people who aren't even like out there as Transformer fans, and they're just like casual fans, but they know Ba Weep Grana Weep Ninny Bong. They will make that reference, and there's plenty of things in this movie that can be referenced. There are cool lines, I have better things to do tonight than die. Little quippy things like that I think even the live action movies are kind of missing, Another thing is animation quality. Now, especially if you were growing up with the original cartoon, to go from Season 2's kind of like hit and miss quality to the abundance of polish that was done for the animated movie, it's night and day. It's night and day. So even if you're just going back and like as a new fan and you want to experience that nostalgia, you're going to watch Season 1 and 2, and then you're going to hit scenes like this that are absolutely gorgeous. Look at everything. Look at the detail. Look at the lights. Look at the colors. Like, it's so dramatically different compared to what we are used to. Whether, even today, like even by today's standards, the movie is beautiful. It's beautifully animated. So there is that, there's that. There's this visual to it that I don't think CG compares to. Just because, like, no matter what, you're going to be limited. And two-dimensional art, you tend to have a lot more freedom you can do. Things like this kind of show it. We'll also mention soundtrack. Soundtrack is definitely one. I don't care where you stick the Linkin Park song in the live-action movies. It just does not compare to hearing, like, the 80s hair metal going on during big battle scenes. And even, like, the orchestral stuff is extremely well done, and it suits the atmosphere. It's electronic instruments, it's heavy notes. It feels appropriate, it feels correct for the franchise and for the scenes going on. It just sets the tone. The movie never fails to set its tone correctly. When Unicron first appears in the music that's playing, it's dark, it's ominous, it's mysterious. Like, there's an element of, like, impending doom to it, specifically done for Unicron. And there's just things like that, like in the movies since, there's no like tone. There's no way to like compare the tone of that. Like the music in the live action movies tends to get lost under, mechanical grinding and explosion noises. It's just kind of a backup player instead of adding to the scenes itself. So there's that element. There is a musical element. And I'm sorry, but I fail to remember anything in the live action movies that's as cool as watching two robots sword fight while Weird Al is playing. You just don't beat that. The movie's daring. Can you imagine a modern Transformer movie killing off Optimus or Bumblebee and leaving them dead? And just letting a new character kind of carry the movie from there on out? Yes, overall it was a mistake on their part. Hasbro, in general, underestimated the popularity of Optimus Prime and how important it was to keep him around in the franchise, so they had to backpedal real hard, real fast on this one. but it was daring at the time, you know? Like, let's take our main character and kill him off. Like, I don't care if it's just like a pilot for a toy. At that point, you've got 70 some episodes of this franchise, and this is your lead hero in said franchise, and you've just decided to show their death and make it a major point in the movie. And it's not even that long. It's like 20 minutes into the movie, or not even, you know, maybe not even that, maybe like 15 minutes. It's amazing. It's amazing for them to even dare to do. Now, granted, like I said, it might not have been for the best, but it's a moment that makes the movie memorable. What kind of moment in the live action movies compares to that? You know, where is the emotion? Where is the scene that has that level of emotional impact? I don't think there is one. I don't think you can find it, especially given the fact that usually when Prime dies, or Rise of the Beast, Bumblebee dies, spoiler alert, it's been long enough, they just come back, which undercuts the whole thing. Of course they came back. They're the lead stars of the franchise. And speaking of just like memorable moments, like the charge of Optimus Prime, it really feels like, because all the odds are stacked against the Autobots. They're on the losing end. You see that they fought all night and the Decepticons are winning. They're all exhausted. And then Optimus makes the charge to turn the tide of the battle. And this is just like this iconic jump into the fray. It's like Superman swooping in to save the day at the last minute. It feels like that. And it's so well earned from the scene, the way it's set up prior to that. You know, it just does so well. The closest I can come to this live action is the scene in like the Chicago battle. But the Autobots hadn't joined the battle when they charged in prior to that. They had just joined in and just started mowing down Decepticons left and right. We didn't see them in a defeated state like you do here in this movie, which makes Optimus Prime's charge into the battle during the Battle of Chicago kind of lackluster. And then there's the whole part where he gets caught in a bunch of cables between buildings, so yeah, he doesn't really look too heroic there. It's weird. I'm not a fan of it. Also, I'm sorry, nothing compares to the spectacle of Unicron. To start the movie the way they did, here's Lithone, this living planet. You see people going about their day. You see, you know, these great buildings set up. You see children playing. And then a minute later, their entire planet is being literally devoured bite by bite. Well, the screen turns blood red, everyone is screaming and running, the ships can't escape, one ship gets away, and that's it. Those kids you just saw just a few minutes ago are dead. They're being devoured, they're being digested right now. That's really freaking ominous, and it's a beautifully animated scene. To just get across the danger and the scale of Unicron, and then to just have him float by as if this was no big deal. This man just committed Armageddon, and he just kept going. The way you would if you stepped on a bug and then just kept walking down the sidewalk. It's incredible. And you get that again when he transforms and just casually rakes his hand through Cybertron. Yeah, when you get to the live-action movie versions of Unicron, like, this just does not compare. It just doesn't, you know? Because the build-up the build-up is earned. It's well done in the original 86 movie, and it's lacking something when you see him in live action now. Maybe the future movies will be a little bit of a different story, but for now, what we've seen, yeah, I don't think the live-action movies have presented just as visual, like something that's as visually stunning as what Unicron is doing in the original movie. You know, I know it's realistic CG compared to like old 80s animation, but you know, that's not how your mind plays it out. You know, I can admit new one's better animated, but I think for what they're going for, and I think the tone they're setting, I don't think it compares. In general, when you look back at the 86 movie, I think it stands out, and I think it's memorable just because of how it actually treats everything. What is the one thing that happens in the live action movies that does not happen in the 86 movie? What is the one major thing? I've already described how I feel like there are elements of the 86 movie better done and better handled than in the live action movies. Not to say the live action movies are all bad, but personally, there are there are moments and there are elements that were done better in the original movie, and I think that's what makes it memorable. But what's the main thing? The major thing that the live action movies always fail to do, they always fail to treat the Transformers as the main characters. Do you realize here that Transformers 1 will be the 9th Transformers movie that's theatrically released in the US? I'm sorry, Beast Wars 2nd, we're putting you aside for now. 9 Transformer movies, and it's only been the 1st and the 9th that were animated. That blows me away for a franchise that is primarily known for its animation. Most of us, there are people watching that grew up with the Babe movies, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for most of us, when we think back to the Transformers and we think of these big memorable moments, they're in animation, whether it's 2D or 3D. And even for you live action fans, I would even argue that sometimes those moments are so heavily CGI'd, I would call them animated. But it's amazing, because it's amazing to me that, it's been that long. But those two movies, 1 and the original, have something else in common, and that is the human element is either downplayed or non-existent. In the 86 movie, it's really just Daniel as kind of like this C-plot. And in 1, of course, there's no human interaction whatsoever. So they're the two movies that treat the Transformers as the main characters, and I can't say that about the live-action movies at any given point. The closest I would say these movies ever came to that was Mirage in the last movie, because it feels like he's had the most screen time and actual character development within the movie itself. I don't know any other Transformer character who showed noticeable character growth and development. Maybe Optimus Prime, but generally that was undone in the next movie. It felt like Mirage generally was like the first time a Transformer was treated like a full character, with maybe the exception of Bumblebee. And then I mean that in the Bumblebee movie. But even then, they aren't the main characters, are they? No, it's Charlie and Noah. Those are the main characters and where the majority of the plot focuses on. It's where the majority of the screen time focuses on when they're not in an action scene. So just imagine this. So, like, it's weird to me. You go to a movie called Transformers, and the story wants to focus on someone that is not a Transformer, whereas, like, literally every other piece of media that we grew up with this franchise, again, all the animated stuff, all of that's all Transformer focused. Those are the main characters, and that's what makes them more memorable to me. Here's the comparison. Here's the comparison. It's like if you go to the Justice League movie, and do the thing that the Justice League movie did, which is like, here's some familiar heroes, and then a whole bunch the casual moviegoer might not be familiar with. We're just dumping them on you all at once, right? And that's kind of how the Transformer movies work. Bumblebee, Optimus Prime, but not everyone's going to know who Crosshairs is. Not everyone's going to know who Hound is. And even then, these are all new versions of those characters, so that's not even applicable. So it's like you did that. It's like if you had the Justice League movie, but instead of focusing on, Batman and Wonder Woman and like those featured characters, you're just focusing on some guy. Not even like a Jimmy Olsen or like a known comic book character, just someone they made up. Like the last Mortal Kombat movie just invented a character to be the lead hero. Like that kind of thing. It's like if you just watch this and you're just watching the story of the guy who got wrapped up into the big Justice League versus Darkseid battle or whatever the movie's plot is. And the Justice League is just there for the action scenes and some exposition scenes, but you're really just focusing on how this affects the one guy. To be fair, There might be an interesting story in just focusing on one civilian stuck in the middle of a superhero routine. But at the end of the day, I don't go to the Justice League movie to see the story of Billy the civilian. I go to see Batman. I go to see Wonder Woman. I go to see Green Lantern or whoever's in the Justice League that month. I don't go for random guy. And that's what the live action movies do. They make me feel like I'm going to see the movie about the random guy. Or in the case of the Bumblebee movie, the random girl. Granted, done better in that movie. But still, it's only this movie, and now one, where I really feel like the characters that are the center of the plot and the focus of the movie are 100% the Transformers. You know, the characters of the franchise. I think that's one reason why it still endures, is because it is a genuine, pure Transformers movie. Not to use that term as like purest fan movie or anything like that, but just it is a Transformers movie about Transformers and only about Transformers. You know, it's a movie about the franchise and the characters. That's what I think it has, and that's why I think it endures. Along with all the other stuff, because frankly, that's all personal preference at that point. But for me, it boils down to it's a movie about Transformers, which is not something I always get when I'm watching the CGI spectacles in live action. So that's my thought. That's my whole breakdown of the whole thing. Once again, D. Bonaventura is a moron. He needs to keep his mouth shut. But, you know, sometimes I can get content out of it, so maybe not. But those are my thoughts. Please, by all means, feel free to discuss it in the comments below. And as always, I will see you next time.